I raised my kids with late nights, packed lunches, and whispered promises that no matter how far they climbed, they'd never forget where they came from. But the night I told them I'd been laid off, they barely looked up from their phones, already rewriting me into a footnote. I could have broken. I could have disappeared. Instead, I found a way to rise, not just for myself, but to remind them exactly who they underestimated. That night, Logan and Madison showed up fashionably late, as always. He swept in, talking about funding rounds and scaling verticals, while she adjusted her trench coat like she was stepping off a Vogue shoot. I hadn't seen either of them in weeks. "I've got news," I said, passing the salad bowl. They barely glanced up from their phones. I was let go. The company downsized the entire compliance division. Madison raised one perfectly arched eyebrow. "So, you're retired now?" "Not quite," I said. "I'm still figuring things out." That's when Logan laughed. Not just a chuckle. A full, head-thrown-back laugh like I'd told a joke. "Mom, you worked in that boring paper pusher job for what, 30 years? Maybe it's time you relaxed. Start baking banana bread. Plant herbs or something." Madison chimed in, twisting her wine glass. "You could take one of those senior yoga classes at the rec center." "The ones where they used chairs?" My anger simmered. They didn't see the woman who'd spent decades balancing budgets and late-night calls from Singapore. They saw a retiree in waiting, useful for babysitting, maybe, or watching their plants while they vacationed in Tulum. I forced a smile. That's one way to look at it. Later that week, my severance packet arrived. Thick envelope. Legal stationery. I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, reading line by line, flipping through benefits, release clauses, and then I saw it. A single paragraph that made my pulse skip. Pursuant to Clause 7C, all employees with 25-plus years of service are entitled to retained common stock options in affiliated startups held by the parent company. I blinked. Skylure Labs. That was Logan's company. Turns out, back when he and Madison were raising capital, they leaned on my firm for legal assistance. I'd pushed through the documentation to expedite their incorporation. Somewhere along the line, stock was issued. Automatically. I hadn't just been let go. I'd been given a foot in the door. My heart kicked. I sat very still, listening to the refrigerator hum behind me. Then, I smiled. "Let me tell you about my kids." Logan Beckett, 30 years old and freshly anointed tech bro, co-founded Skylure Labs with his college roommate and a brilliant developer named Erica Cruz. He's sharp, I'll give him that. Charismatic when he wants to be. But somewhere along the way, he started believing his own press releases. That grit and hustle only counts if it comes from someone under 30. Madison's 28, head of PR at Skylure, mostly because she's good with words and even better with a ring light. She's charming when it suits her, polished, poised, and oh, how she loves a narrative, especially when she's the misunderstood genius daughter reinventing digital storytelling. In private, though, she's quick with a side eye, deadly with a compliment that cuts deeper than a slap. When they were little, they'd run barefoot through our old backyard, sticky with popsicle juice, tugging on my apron asking for stories. Now, they look at me like I'm a relic. That dinner, I didn't say a word about the stock. Let them think I was down for the count. Let them snicker behind their gin cocktails. I had a plan forming. Quiet, deliberate, the way all good storms start. A few weeks later, I stopped by Skylure Labs. Well, tried to. Their office is one of those sleek co-working hubs downtown, all glass doors and kombucha on tap. I signed in as a guest, waited near the brushed aluminum elevator. Madison walked right past me with two investors and didn't even blink. I sent her a text. She replied, "Busy. Let's catch up soon." Closing parentheses, quote. I sat there for another hour. Logan finally emerged from a conference room, earbuds in, hoodie halfway zipped. He looked up and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mom, you didn't text." "I did," I said softly. "I wanted to hear more about what you're building. I have time now." He laughed again. "Mom, you wouldn't understand half of what we do. It's all blockchain inference and machine logic, not exactly filing TPS reports." I swallowed that like vinegar. He added, "But hey, if you want to come to our next pitch event, let Madison know. She handles guest lists. Of course she did. He walked off with a casual wave, leaving me standing there, alone. That night, I opened my laptop. I still had access to Skylure's investor platform, an old link buried in my inbox. Madison must have forgotten I was part of the early legal documentation. I found board reports, shareholder updates, and something else. A calendar invite. Founders Retreat, Vail, Colorado. Board not required. I clicked it. Guest list. Logan, Madison, and a handful of tech influencers. Missing? Erica Cruz, the third co-founder. I remembered her. Shy but brilliant. She used to come by our house when they first launched, always bringing pastries and staying to help with dishes. Then, one day, she disappeared. No explanation. That night, I didn't sleep. I read every document I could find, traced every email thread, and by dawn, I knew. Madison had moved funds. Logan had copied code. Erica had been iced out, silently. They thought no one noticed. They were wrong. A few days after that failed visit to Skylure Labs, I sat at my kitchen table, same table where I used to pack their school lunches, and logged into the shareholder portal. There it was, clear as day. Voting stock, 0.75% of the company, retained through my severance clause. Doesn't sound like much, right? Well, in a startup like Skylure, where voting power is fragmented between angel investors, VCs, and internal founders, 0.75% could tip the scale. Especially when the siblings had been burning bridges faster than they could fundraise. I clicked the next link. Board calendar. A virtual session scheduled for Thursday, labeled Quarterly Review. I RSVP'd without a word. No camera, no mic. Just a silent observer logged in under my full legal name. Tina L. Beckett. Nobody noticed. Not Madison. Not Logan. They probably didn't even recognize the name anymore. The meeting opened with a sleek slideshow. Madison took the lead, flashing charts, rattling off buzzwords. We're building a new frontier of automated influence, powered by AI. Branded engagement has never been smarter. Paul Whitaker, their compliance advisor, my old boss, bless his heart, raised a hand. And how exactly are we quantifying engagement? Madison blinked. It's qualitative. We're redefining the metric. Redefining the metric. I nearly choked on my tea. Then came Logan, all swagger and Silicon Valley arrogance. We're sunsetting the Cruise protocol and pivoting to a more scalable IP suite. The Cruise protocol. Erica's prototype. Their golden goose. A quiet ripple moved through the board. A few investors glanced at each other, but no one spoke. And I just watched. Scribbled notes. Each lie they told, each shortcut they took. I wrote it down like scripture. The next week, I tried to visit Erica. Found her LinkedIn. No job listed. No contact. Then I remembered the old email she used to use. One she'd sent thank you notes from back when I still made muffins during team brainstorms. So I reached out. Just one line. Erica, it's Tina Beckett, Logan's mother. I'd like to talk, if you're open to it. She replied in less than an hour. I thought no one remembered me. We met at a quiet coffee shop on West 9th. She looked older, wearier, eyes guarded. But when I asked what happened, she told me everything. They said I wasn't aligned with the vision, she whispered. But really, they just didn't want to split the launch credit. Madison had a meltdown when investors started quoting me during beta testing. Erica looked down, fidgeting with her bracelet. I built the original framework from scratch, Tina. I coded until my wrists hurt. Then, they kicked me out with a silent vote. A silent vote? I asked. She nodded. They waited until I was out of town, used a clause in the founders' agreement to call a special session. I didn't even know until I got the termination letter. I felt a deep, hot shame in my stomach. They'd learned manipulation from someone. Maybe me. Maybe the world. Maybe both. But it was time to rewrite the ending. I still have shares, I said. Erica's eyes shot up. And if we combine them, I added, we can call a vote of our own. Back home, I called Paul. He picked up with that gravelly voice of his. Well, if it isn't Tina Beckett, still wrangling corporate weasels? I asked. Every day. Why? I need help out wrangling two of them. They share my last name. There was a long pause, then he chuckled. I was wondering when you'd get tired of being treated like a ghost. He agreed to connect me with a firm specializing in shareholder disputes. Within days, a legal team reviewed every clause tied to Skylar's founding documents. Turns out, Logan and Madison had made one crucial mistake. They never formally removed Erica from the board in writing. They sent her a termination letter, sure, but they failed to follow the bylaws. The vote was invalid. Erica still held co-founder status. I held voting power. And Paul? He knew how to build a case brick by brick. A few weeks later, it was Mother's Day. They invited me to brunch. Or rather, Madison sent me an evite. No personal note. No call. The restaurant was all concrete chic and overpriced cocktails. Madison greeted me with air kisses. Logan didn't even get up from his seat. "Happy Mother's Day," he said, tapping his phone. I sat quietly. They'd ordered without me, toasted with champagne, laughed at inside jokes. Then, like a magician pulling a rabbit from a smug little hat, Madison reached into her bag and pulled out a cookbook. "Cooking for Retirement," it read. Floral cover. Big, cheerful font. "I figured you'd finally have time to try new hobbies," she said, grinning. I smiled tightly. Very thoughtful. Then Logan leaned back and started bragging. "Skylar's about to go public, Mom. Big time. Once we sell, we can finally pivot away from all the old-timers. No offense. No offense. That old chestnut." Madison leaned in, smirking. "You should come visit sometime. Maybe we'll let you test our app. You know, as a legacy user." They laughed. And I? I just stirred my coffee. Let them laugh. I'd see them soon. At the head of their own boardroom, the Monday before the shareholder meeting, I bought a new blazer. Black crepe, clean lines, something with weight. I stood in the dressing room mirror smoothing the lapels and thought, so this is what armor looks like now. It'd been decades since I'd worn anything besides business casual cardigans and orthopedic flats. But that morning, I laced up kitten heels with steady hands and said out loud, "They won't see me coming." Paul had spent the weekend walking me through every step. Erica and I would present our case jointly. The goal wasn't to embarrass Logan and Madison, though heaven help me, they deserved it, but to stabilize the company before they tore it to shreds. We weren't staging a takeover. We were staging a rescue. The boardroom was a fishbowl. Glass walls, endless chrome, the skyline yawning just beyond. Madison and Logan walked in side by side, laughing like they'd already closed the next round of funding. Madison wore all white. Of course she did, and Logan was in that same startup hoodie he thought made him look humble. They stopped short when they saw me at the head of the table. "Tina?" Logan blinked. "What are you doing here?" "Good morning," I said, folding my hands. "Please, take a seat." Madison gave a thin smile, all teeth. "If this is about Mom joining as a guest, we weren't notified." "You were," Paul replied from the far end, via official board communication. "Ms. Beckett holds retained shares and has legal authority to attend as a voting party." Logan's jaw flexed. "That stock is barely 1%. 0.75 actually," I said. "But when paired with Erica's, we represent a controlling block." And just like that, the first domino fell. Logan's face drained of color. Madison scoffed. "Wait, Erica. She doesn't even work here." "I never formally resigned," Erica said, appearing in the doorway. "Your vote was invalid. You broke the bylaws." She stepped inside, calm as a lake on a windless day. "So I'm back. Effective immediately." The room froze. I opened my folder and began to speak. Over the past quarter, this company has committed multiple breaches of protocol. Misuse of company funds for non-approved retreats, misrepresentation of proprietary work, and the suppression of a co-founder's rights. Logan stood up. "This is insane. You're not even part of this company." "Oh, but I am," I said sweetly. "You handed me a seat the moment you let your legal team fast-track my severance." I slid a printout across the table. "Here's the clause. I've highlighted it for your convenience." Madison's lips pressed together. "So what's the plan here? You and Erica come back, wave some dusty old paperwork, and what? Take over?" "We're not interested in theatrics," I said. "We want accountability. And a vote." "A vote on what?" Logan snapped. I smiled. on whether you and Neil Lawson remain in leadership." The room exploded. Logan shouted. Madison gasped, like someone had slapped her. Neil, the so-called CEO, sat very still, blinking slowly like someone just explained fire was wet. Paul cleared his throat. "We'll conduct the vote via secure digital ballot. Results to be reviewed and logged within the hour." "You can't do this," Logan said, voice cracking. "We built this company. You built part of it," Erica said calmly. "Then you tried to erase the rest." Madison pointed at me like a child tattling to a teacher. "This is personal. She's doing this because we mocked her, because she got laid off." I stood, meeting her gaze. "I gave you everything. Patience, tuition, home-cooked meals. What I didn't give you was permission to lie, cheat, and destroy something good for the sake of ego." Logan shook his head, furious. "You're not doing this for the company. You're doing it to punish us." "No," I said softly. "I'm doing this because you taught me what betrayal looks like, and now I finally know what to do with it." The votes were cast, and while we waited, I walked to the window. The city pulsed below, cars, cranes, the steady rhythm of construction. Progress. Erica came to stand beside me. "You okay?" she asked. "No," I whispered. "But I'm clear." She nodded. "That's more important." 36 minutes later, the results came in. Neil Lawson, removed as CEO. Logan Beckett, reassigned to a transitional advisory role, non-executive. Madison Beckett, demoted to Director of Media Relations. Board privileges revoked. And me? I was named interim chair of the board. The room was silent. Then Logan slammed his laptop shut. "You're making a huge mistake." I didn't flinch. "The only mistake I made was thinking you'd inherited my values." Madison stood slowly. Her face was white, not from rage, but shock. "You'll regret this," she said. "Everyone will." I reached down, picked up the cookbook she'd given me at brunch, and slid it across the table. "Maybe you can finally try a hobby." It took exactly 1 day. 1 day for Madison to fire up her ring light and start spinning the whole story like she was the heroine of some corporate tragedy. Her first post read, "Change is never easy. Sometimes we step down to step up. Excited for this next chapter. Hashtag leadership shift. Hashtag strategic pivot. Hashtag growth. Strategic pivot, my foot." She made it sound like she'd gracefully bowed out of a TED Talk, not been ousted for mismanagement and intellectual theft. The next day, she posted a black and white photo of her hand clutching a ceramic mug. No caption. Just a quote overlaid in bold script. "Sometimes the people who raised you never expected you to rise." Oh, I see. So now I was the villain. The jealous mother. The bitter old woman who couldn't handle her daughter's success. Madison always did know how to weaponize the truth. Logan, on the other hand, didn't take to social media. No, he went underground. Whispers started surfacing. Anonymous tip emails sent to our investors. Rumors about misaligned leadership and hostile internal restructuring. Logan's fingerprints weren't on them, but I recognized his tone, the smug little digs wrapped in buzzwords. Then came the leaks. Screenshots of internal Slack messages, taken out of context, of course, framed to make Erica look volatile, emotional. There were even emails he'd clearly doctored, implying I'd bribed staff to vote a certain way. Paul handled it with the cold precision of a man who'd been cleaning up corporate messes since the fax machine era. "Don't take the bait," he told me. "This is their flailing stage. They're used to being untouchable." Still, it stung. Watching the children I raised morph into conniving little sharks, I used to hold their hands while they cried over playground fights. Now they were trying to gut my reputation for sport. And yet, beneath the hurt, I found a strange kind of calm. Because this time, I wasn't alone. Erica worked beside me late into the evenings, reorganizing teams, rebuilding the crew's protocol under its rightful name. She was quiet, focused, never bitter, just steady. I admired that. We took coffee in my office one night, her cross-legged on the carpet, me in my old rolling chair with a heating pad at my back. "I should be furious," she said softly, staring at the ceiling. "But mostly, I just feel free." I nodded. "That's how you know you did the right thing." She looked at me then. "Why'd you do it, Tina? Really?" I took a long sip of lukewarm coffee, because I got tired of clapping for people who'd set fire to everything I built, including me. Meanwhile, Logan refused to leave quietly. He kept showing up to the office. At first it was to tie up loose ends, but then it turned into mysterious hallway strolls, unscheduled check-ins, always just happening to be nearby when investors stopped by. After the third incident, I called security and had his badge deactivated. He showed up at my house that same evening, wearing that same smug smile I'd come to hate. "You really gonna lock me out of my own company?" he asked, leaning on the doorframe like he was doing me a favor just standing there. "No," I said, cool and calm. "You did that yourself. I'm just closing the door you kicked open." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Enjoy your little throne, Mom. But don't forget, we're still your kids." I looked him dead in the eye. "Exactly. And if you think that still gives you a free pass, you've learned nothing." He didn't reply, just shoved his hands in his pockets and walked off. The next morning, my inbox was flooded with interview requests. Apparently, a source close to the founding family had leaked news of Skylar's internal shakeup to the press. Most of the pieces painted a sanitized version, a power shift, a generational handoff, a strong female founder reclaiming her narrative. But one quote stood out. An anonymous board member confirmed that ageism and internal family politics may have played a role in recent firings. There it was, the dagger wrapped in silk. Madison again. I could almost smell the lavender toner from her signature stationery. Always subtle, always poisonous. So I made a decision. I called up our PR coordinator, a bright young woman named Nia who reminded me of Erica at 25. Sharp eyes, sharper instincts. "Nia," I said, "book me a slot." She hesitated. "For press? Full interview. Major outlet. Are you sure?" I paused, fingers resting on the mouse. I've let other people tell my story for too long. The interview aired a week later. I wore the same black blazer, sat with my back straight, voice steady, no frills. The reporter, a woman named Dana with a journalist's poker face, asked the questions I expected. "Why now? What happened between you and your children? Do you worry this makes you look vengeful?" To the last, I smiled. "People see what they want to see," I said. "But if standing up for your principles looks like revenge, maybe the world needs more of it." Dana leaned in. "Do you think they'll ever forgive you?" I looked at the camera, right into the lens. "I don't need forgiveness for doing the right thing. What I need is peace." The morning after my interview aired, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Old colleagues, distant cousins, even my old hairdresser Marcia left me a voicemail that just said, "'Bout damn time, Tina." I smiled, standing at my kitchen sink, rinsing coffee grounds into the drain. But peace? That lasted less than 48 hours. Because the next board meeting didn't open with a presentation or a financial update. It opened with a motion. A new name had been added to the shareholders' ledger. A silent investor who now owned just under 7% of Skylar Labs. Name, Sable Creek Ventures, anonymous, Shell registered. Based out of Nevada like every shadow fund looking to play puppet master without showing its face, Paul was the one who flagged it. "This didn't come through the standard fundraising pipeline," he said, flipping through papers. "This was off-market, privately negotiated." "By who?" I asked, though I already knew. He met my eyes. All signs point to Logan. We did some digging. Turns out, Sable Creek was a holding company, formed less than a month ago. Guess who signed the formation papers? Neil Lawson, the same CEO we'd ousted for incompetence and expense abuse. He was back, all right, just wearing a different mask. They thought they were clever, that if they couldn't win by title, they'd win by proxy. With nearly 7% and a few disgruntled board members still loyal to Logan, they were one vote shy of being able to stall every initiative I proposed. Budget approvals, tech reinvestments, even hiring freezes. And worse, they'd requested a vote to cap my interim term as chair at 90 days. Erica paced the hallway outside my office that afternoon, biting her lip like she used to chew pencils in college. "They're not trying to win," she said. "They're trying to wear us down." She was right. It was death by delay, by frustration, by forcing us to fight every single decision until we gave up from exhaustion. And if they thought I'd go quietly, They'd clearly forgotten who taught them how to hold a grudge. I called Paul that evening. "Am I wrong?" I asked. "Or can we call a special session to propose a countermotion?" "You can," he said. "But you're short one vote. You need a fifth to break the tie. And if I can't get that fifth vote, you'd better start preparing your exit speech." I spent the weekend combing through files, looking for leverage. Not blackmail. No. I was done with backroom tactics. I was looking for a crack. A sliver of daylight, some soul in that boardroom who hadn't sold theirs to Logan. And then, I remembered her. Devin Pruitt. She'd been one of Skylar's earliest investors. Put in a modest sum back when Logan was still building the first prototype in our garage. A friend of a friend type. Kind eyes. Quiet. Mid-60s. The kind of woman who brought homemade scones to shareholder meetings and always asked questions no one took seriously. I called her Sunday evening. "Devin, it's Tina Beckett. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "Oh heavens no, dear. I just finished watering the azaleas. You sound tired." That nearly did me in. Just the way she said it. Soft, without judgment. "I need to ask you something," I said, "and I need you to really hear me out." I told her everything. The fake vote. The stolen prototype. The shell company Logan had set up to manipulate power from the shadows. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she let out a breath and said, "I always knew he had sharp elbows, but I didn't think he'd use them on his own mother." "It's not about revenge," I said. "It's about ethics, about giving this company a fighting chance, not a frat house with a funding round." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You have my vote. Just tell me when and where." The next morning, we called the session. Logan didn't even bother to hide his smirk. Madison showed up late, in sunglasses. And Neil? He wore a Rolex I'd seen on Logan's wrist last Christmas. I opened with a single motion. To reinstate term limits for all board roles, effective immediately, and to implement a full audit of external investors and back-channel share transfers. Logan scoffed. "That's rich, coming from someone who ambushed her own kids." I looked straight at him. "You call it an ambush. I call it accountability. Tomato, tomato." Then I turned to Devin, seated quietly beside Paul. "Miss Pruitt," I said gently, "would you like to cast your vote?" She smiled. "Gladly. 5 in favor. 3 opposed." Motion passed. Logan stood abruptly, sending his chair screeching backward. "This isn't over." I raised one eyebrow. "That's what you said last time." He looked to Madison for backup, but she was already checking her phone, no doubt prepping her next sympathy post. "Enjoy your little company," he spat. I didn't flinch. "Enjoy your next interview. I hear WeWork's hiring." After the meeting, Devin slipped me a small envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "A recipe," she said. "Cinnamon scones. You'll need them. Trust me." I laughed. "For me or for them?" Her eyes sparkled. "Both." We made it through 1 week. 1 week of real work. Real progress. Erica finalized the relaunch plan for the cruise protocol, renaming it E2, in quiet tribute to her father, who used to fix printers with a screwdriver and a prayer. I moved department heads out of glass fish bowls and into real rooms with doors. We adjusted the budget to prioritize engineering over influencers. For the first time since my name appeared on the payroll, Skylure Labs started to feel steady. But just as the dust settled, a new name popped up in the investor dashboard. Cameron Beckett. I stared at the screen, heart suddenly cold. That was my ex-husband's last name. Logan's middle name. I hadn't heard it in years. I clicked on the profile. Not much there. Just enough to confirm what I feared. He was real. He held just over 4% of shares, quietly acquired through Sable Creek's sister company. And his listed employer? Kempthorne Capital. The kind of firm that specialized in hostile takeovers dressed as rescues. I hadn't seen Cameron since the day I served him divorce papers. 20 years ago, I found out he was funneling our mortgage payments into his mistress's nail salon. Said he was investing in, quote, female-led ventures. Like I should have been grateful. He signed over custody of the kids without a word. Disappeared into some yacht club lifestyle, only re-emerging when Logan got his first round of seed funding. And now he wanted a seat at my table. Paul closed the laptop with a sigh. He's making a move. But why now? Erica asked. What's in it for him? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Leverage, I said. Logan burned his bridges. Cameron thinks he can cash in on the pity. And what makes you think he won't? Paul asked, his tone gentle but pointed. Because he forgot who taught Logan how to lie? The official email arrived that Friday. Subject line, shareholder introduction, C. Beckett. Polite, sterile. The kind of message that could lull you into thinking this was all routine. But I knew better. Cameron had requested to present a strategic optimization proposal at the next board meeting. The kind of language that sounds like innovation, but always means someone's head is on the chopping block. Probably mine. Erica threw up her hands. Is there something in the water with this family? I gave a thin smile. Only blood, apparently. That weekend, I took a drive. No destination. Just winding roads and sunlight through the windshield. I ended up on the outskirts of town, past the subdivisions and smoothie shops, near the old lakeside park where Logan used to feed ducks, and Madison once screamed at a goose. And I thought, where did I go wrong? Not with loving them. I'd do that all over again. But maybe I loved without conditions, gave without pause, and in doing so taught them that sacrifice was free, and respect could be skipped. My hands gripped the wheel. No more. Monday morning, the office buzzed like a beehive on fire. The word was out. Cameron Beckett was coming to speak. Rumors flew. He was taking over. He was funding a new CEO. He was replacing the board entirely. Even Nia, our PR coordinator, looked pale when she handed me the meeting agenda. He asked for 10 minutes, she whispered. But you should see the guest list. I flipped to the bottom of the page. Madison, Logan, Neil. They were coming, all of them. The room felt colder than usual. Or maybe that was just me. Cameron entered like a man walking into a country club. Navy suit, no tie, cufflinks polished. His hair was gray now, but his smirk, still sharp as ever. Tina, he said, like we were old friends catching up over brunch. You look well. I look like I have a job, I said flatly. You look like someone who lets other people do theirs. There was a chuckle from one of the Sable Creek reps. Cameron smiled wider. Still got that fire, he said. That's what I loved about you. Until it burned the whole marriage down. Paul cleared his throat. Let's stay on topic, shall we? Cameron nodded graciously, then tapped his laptop. A slide appeared behind him. Vision 2.0. Modernizing Skylar's future. He talked, and talked, and talked. About streamlined hierarchies. About lean executive leadership. About removing legacy figures to make space for modern governance. That was the key phrase. Legacy figures. He never said my name. Didn't have to. When he finished, he folded his hands. Any questions? I stood. One. Of course, he said, gesturing like a man holding court. I walked to the screen, tapped the touchpad, switched slides. The next page read, Cameron Beckett, History of Financial Misconduct, SEC Watch List, 2009 to 2013. A quiet gasp moved through the room. Erica smiled without looking up from her notepad. Cameron's face didn't move, but his fingers tightened around the laptop edge. I stepped back. I'm not the legacy risk here, I said, voice low and even. You are. The vote was set for Thursday. A motion to amend the charter. Any shareholder with a known history of regulatory violations could be barred from holding board influence or initiating leadership restructuring. It was, in plain speak, the Keep Cameron Out vote. Paul crafted the language airtight. Erica worked with the legal team to ensure everything was compliant. And I waited. I'd been through enough of these games by now to know the real trouble never comes from the front. It doesn't kick down the door, it slips through a crack, smiles at you in the hallway, stirs your coffee. And that week, someone stirred mine. The first odd thing happened Tuesday morning. I came in early, as I often did. Old habits die hard, and found Erica already there, sitting at the conference table in the dark, laptop glowing faint blue. You all right? I asked. She startled, slammed the lid closed. Oh, yeah, just couldn't sleep. Her voice was clipped, tight. like someone who was hiding something but didn't know how to lie. I didn't press. Not then. But it didn't leave me. Later, I found Devin Pruitt waiting by the elevator. She looked nervous. "Tina?" she said, pulling me aside. "Someone approached me." "About?" "The vote." I went still. "Who?" She hesitated. "Said they were speaking for someone who wanted Skylure to survive. Offered a buyout for my shares if I abstained." "And you said?" Devin raised one elegant brow. "I said I don't sell to cowards." That night, I ran the numbers again. We needed 6 votes to lock Cameron out for good. We had 5. The swing vote? Erica. She hadn't confirmed either way. When I called her cell, it went straight to voicemail. Wednesday evening, I asked her to join me in the rooftop garden. Skylure's one indulgence: native plants, solar lights, some benches. She came up 15 minutes late, hugging her sweater close like the wind might carry her away. I offered her tea. She refused. "Erica," I said gently, "is there something you want to tell me?" She stared out over the edge. Then, they offered to fund E2. Fully. With a private launch team. My own division. They? She nodded. Cameron. Through a venture partner. "No strings," he said. "Just freedom." My chest tightened. "I know what they're doing," she whispered. "But Tina, I've spent years waiting for my work to matter again. And now they're holding it out like a gift." I stepped closer. "It's not a gift if it comes with a leash." She blinked fast. Her voice cracked. "But what if this is the only way?" I touched her arm. Steady. "Then you've forgotten what we already did." She turned to me then, and I saw it. Raw, gut-wrenching doubt. She wasn't the traitor. She was the target. Thursday morning arrived crisp and gray. The boardroom buzzed with tension. Everyone in their usual seats, but the air felt thinner, like something was about to break. Cameron was there. So were Logan and Madison, each of them wearing that curated calm that says, "We already know how this ends." The vote was called. One by one, the board members voted. Paul, yes. Devin, yes. 2 of the newer appointees, yes, yes. Tina Beckett, yes. 5. Then came Erica. She hesitated. Just for a beat. Then, yes. Cameron's face didn't move, but his hand gripped the table so hard his knuckles turned white. Madison let out a long, bitter exhale. Logan stood and stormed out without a word. The motion passed. Effective immediately. Any shareholder with known regulatory violations, including past SEC watch list inclusion, was barred from board participation and strategic proposal authorship. Cameron was locked out. Permanently. After the meeting, Erica found me in my office. "I didn't do it for you," she said. "Or the board." I nodded. "I know." She looked down at her hands. "I did it for the girl who built something in a garage and watched it get stolen. She deserves better than hush money." I smiled, tears prickling. "She's getting it." Erica lingered at the door. "And if I ever do take funding outside Skylure, you'll tell me," I said. She nodded, and then she was gone. I sat alone for a long time. The storm had passed, for now. But somewhere deep in my gut, I knew it wasn't over. Not truly. People like Cameron didn't vanish. They regrouped, watched, waited for the cracks to widen. Still, I felt something that night I hadn't felt in years. Not triumph, not pride. Relief. I should have felt victorious. We'd won the vote. Locked Cameron out. Logan and Madison were scrambling, shadows of their old swagger. Skylure was finally standing on its own legs, with a future I believed in. But something kept nagging at me. A feeling. A thought I couldn't name. So I went back to the beginning. Literally. I spent the weekend at home, buried under old file boxes. Notebooks from when Skylure was just an idea. Loose printouts of contracts, drafts of IP agreements. Photos of the 3 of them, Logan, Madison, and Erica, on my back porch with laptops and Red Bull, arguing over what to name the first prototype. Erica wanted something simple. Pulse. Logan wanted INFLNR, spelled without vowels. Even then, he had a way of turning clean lines into chaos. Then, near the bottom of the last box, I found a USB stick. It was taped to the back of a folder marked Legal Early Stage. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but the initials next to it? EC Erica Cruz. I plugged it into my old laptop. The files were dated 6 years ago, before the company had a name, before the articles of incorporation, before Logan even dropped out of grad school. And there, buried in the folders, I found the truth. Original code, time-stamped, authored by Erica. A full year before Logan ever claimed he'd built the foundation. I clicked through the metadata. Dozens of entries, all showing her login, her dev environment. But that's not what broke me. It was the email thread between Logan and a lawyer, dated months later. Subject line, IP transfer, ownership reassignment. I read it 3 times before I let the weight of it settle. Logan had filed to move Erica's early development work, her code, under his name, without her knowledge. He'd used boilerplate legal language, filed it through a shell email, even backdated some of the forms. The lawyer had questioned it once, just once, but Logan wrote back, and I will never forget the sentence he used. She's just a developer. We'll keep her around long enough to pad the pitch. My hand flew to my mouth. My boy, my son, he hadn't just hurt Erica. He'd planned it, cold, deliberate. This wasn't ego or ignorance. It was theft. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in the living room, with the USB still in my hand, the TV off, the lights dimmed. I thought about Goofy, our old dog. How Logan used to sneak him Oreos when I wasn't looking. How he cried when we had to put him down. Where had that boy gone? And who the hell had taken his place? I showed the files to Paul first. He read in silence, then leaned back, eyes closed. "This is bad," he said. "This is very bad." "Legal?" He nodded. "It's clear misrepresentation. Possibly fraud. If she wanted to press charges, she doesn't. But she should." I nodded slowly. "I'll talk to her." Erica stared at the screen for a long time. When she looked up, her face was unreadable. "How long have you known?" "Since last night." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid it'd crush you." She smiled, a small, bitter thing. "You think it hasn't already?" I reached across the table, took her hand. "You still have a say in what happens next." She didn't speak for a long while. Then, "I don't want revenge." "Then what?" "Recognition," she whispered. "Credit. I want the truth on record. I want to look at our product and see my name." The next board meeting, I brought it to the table. I didn't announce it with fanfare. Just laid the USB stick in the center. "This," I said, "is the code Skylure was built on. Authored by Erica Cruz 1 year before our founding documents." Logan, who had snuck into the room under advisory guest status, froze mid-sip. His face was pale, but his voice still smug. "That's old work," he said. "None of that made it into the final build." Paul clicked to project the files on the wall. Erica highlighted a section of the current live product and an identical string of logic from the USB. "Word for word," she said. Madison shifted uncomfortably. Logan scoffed. "So what? This is a startup. Things move fast. We all borrowed ideas." "This isn't borrowing," I said calmly. "It's stealing." There was no vote that day. Just silence. Logan left first, walking out with the swagger of a man, pretending the water wasn't rising past his chin. Madison stayed behind. She didn't say anything, just avoided my eyes and twisted her bracelet until the metal bent. And Erica? She stood taller, no longer waiting for permission. Later that night, I updated our press kit. Leadership bios, product history, company origin. One sentence changed everything. The E2 engine was originally prototyped in 2016 by co-founder Erica Cruz, whose early code became the foundation for Skylure's first breakthrough product. Truth, finally printed in black and white. The cease and desist letter arrived on a Tuesday. Not through email, no warning. Just a sharp knock on my front door and a man in a delivery vest holding a stiff white envelope. "To Ms. Tina L. Beckett and Ms. Erica Cruz," it read. Unauthorized use of proprietary intellectual property and defamatory statements. The rest of the letter was a war mask. Legal threats, civil action language, veiled jabs that might have scared a younger me. And at the bottom, of course. Logan's signature. Just under the name of some boutique firm that liked to play big shot in startup litigation. I stood at my kitchen counter, reading every line while my kettle whined itself hoarse behind me. So this is where we'd landed. My own son, suing me, over work he didn't even create. I called Erica. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just said, "So this is how it ends?" "No, honey," I said, steady as stone. "This is how we win." Because Logan made one mistake in all this, one tiny oversight he thought too small to matter. He forgot who handled his paperwork in the early days. He forgot I was the one who filed Skylar's founding documents. I who typed up the IP agreements. I who inserted a clause nobody else bothered to read. I pulled out the dusty binder from my office shelf, flipped to a tab marked Founders Agreement Drafts. Inside was the copy I'd printed for my own records. There, nestled between clauses about equity splits and vesting schedules, was Section 14.6, Ownership Dispute Arbitration, written in plain language, just like I'd insisted. In the event of a dispute involving ownership of code or development assets contributed prior to incorporation, the original author's documentation and dated materials shall override any subsequent assignment unless all parties involved signed a formal IP transfer contract. And you know what Erica never signed? A formal IP transfer. I showed the clause to Paul. He blinked, read it again, then gave a low whistle. "You slipped that in yourself?" I nodded. Logan was too focused on his pitch deck to care, just wanted me to make it legal. Paul leaned back and grinned. "Tina, you magnificent woman." We responded to Logan's cease and desist with a single-page letter, citing Clause 14.6, signed by our attorney, delivered with a copy of Erica's original timestamps, the founding agreement, and the line I'd highlighted in red ink. 3 hours later, we got a reply. Logan was, quote, withdrawing his concerns. Coward didn't even sign it himself. But the damage wasn't over. Not yet. The press caught wind. How they always do. Whispers started swirling again. First on forums, then in small tech blogs, then finally, in Tech Insider Weekly. Headline: Whistleblower claws buries founding scandal at Skylure Labs. They didn't name Logan directly. Didn't have to. Anyone who followed the story knew. The message was clear. Erica was the creator. Tina was the strategist. And Logan? Just a ghost in his own company's past. Madison called me that night. First time in weeks. No hello. No small talk. Just a tight voice over the line. "Do you even care what you've done to this family?" I exhaled slowly. "You mean the part where I finally told the truth?" She laughed bitterly. "You've ruined his name. You've dragged us through the mud. And for what? Some moral high ground? For what?" I snapped, heat rising in my chest. "Madison, I watched the two of you rip apart a woman's career. You took her ideas, her future, and stomped it into the dirt just to look important in front of investors." There was a pause. Then she said, quieter, "We didn't mean to." "But you did," I cut in. "And now you have to sit with it." "I don't know how to come back from this," she said. I let the silence linger. Then, "Maybe don't. Maybe just go forward instead." That week, Erica and I finalized her new title, Chief Technology Officer. We updated the board, the press kit, the website, everything official. She didn't cry, but when she saw it in writing, she whispered, "My dad would have been proud." I squeezed her shoulder. "He should be. You brought his code to life." And now, the world knew it. The final board meeting of the quarter arrived with clear skies and a full agenda. Everyone filed in slowly, quiet, cautious, no grandstanding. No designer sunglasses or smug TikTok-ready grins. Just the low hum of executives realizing this company survived because someone finally told the truth. I sat at the head of the table one last time, blazer pressed, notes neatly stacked, hands steady. Paul gave me a nod from across the room. Erica sat to my left, flipping through her annotated binder. Even Madison showed. She looked thinner, tired, hair pulled back tight, no makeup. I almost didn't recognize her. She didn't speak, just sat with her arms crossed and eyes lowered. I opened the meeting with a breath. As you all know, my term as interim chair ends today. It's been quite a ride. A soft chuckle rippled through the room, but no one really smiled. I didn't ask for this role. I didn't plan for it. But I took it because something needed saving, and not just a product, a principle. That the people who build something should never be erased by the ones who brand it better. Erica glanced over at that, her eyes glassy but strong. I continued. This company has faced deception, arrogance, and outright theft, and somehow, it's still standing. Not because of luck, because of conscience. I let the pause stretch. And now, it's time for a new chair. Someone who can guide Skylar with clarity, compassion, and, God willing, less drama. A few polite smiles this time. Then I said the words no one expected. I nominate Madison Beckett. You could have heard a pin drop. Paul blinked. Erica's mouth actually dropped open. Even Madison sat upright like someone had just yanked her out of a deep sleep. Wait, what? She said. I nodded. You heard me. You want me to take over? No, I said. I'm nominating you. What you do with that nomination, that's your choice. Paul leaned in. Tina, are you sure about this? I am. Madison's voice was shaky. But after everything, why would you trust me? I looked her dead in the eyes. Because one of us still needs to learn how to lead without needing to win. The board murmured. Some surprised, some skeptical. I raised my hand. I know what you're all thinking. And you're right. Madison made mistakes. Big ones. But she also showed up today when she didn't have to. She hasn't left. She hasn't run. She's been watching, listening. And whether she admits it or not, she's learning. Madison looked down at her lap. I kept going. I raised 2 children who believed visibility was everything. That applause meant progress. But leadership isn't lights. It's decisions made when no one's watching. And then I said the real truth. I didn't raise villains. I raised mirror images. Madison learned from me how to wield a smile as armor. Logan learned from me how to bury guilt beneath action. And I won't let their worst traits be the only legacy I leave behind. The board voted. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. Madison Beckett, confirmed as incoming chair of Skylar Labs. Interim title, 90-day review. She accepted in silence. And as I slid the nameplate across the table, she finally whispered, You could have picked anyone else. I know, I said. So why me? I stood, resting a hand on her shoulder. Because I believe in second chances, even for the ones who think they don't deserve them. The rest of the meeting went by in a blur. Budget approvals, staff confirmations, legal housekeeping. And then we adjourned. I gathered my things quietly, heart thudding in that strange, empty way that comes after a fight's been won, but not without scars. Madison caught me in the hallway. I won't mess this up, she said softly. I know, I replied. And when you do, because you will, own it faster than you used to. She nodded. Then added, He's not coming back, you know. Logan? Yeah. He said he's done with the circus, wants to build something new. Solo. I sighed. Let's hope he builds it with clean hands this time. I rode the elevator down alone. No fanfare, no champagne, just me, my folder, and the hum of silence. And yet, I felt lighter. Not because I'd won, because I'd handed it back. With grace, with purpose, on my terms. 3 days after I left Skylar, I slept in until 7:30. That might not sound like much, but for me, it was rebellion. No board calls, no meetings, no prep decks or last-minute legal reviews. Just coffee in my backyard, wrapped in the old knit shawl Thomas gave me before he passed. Bluebirds chattered in the pine tree like they were narrating my piece. But, of course, peace never stays quiet. Around 9:15, my phone buzzed with a soft ping. Subject: If you're reading this, I guess I lost. From Logan Beckett. Time: sent 1 week ago. My heart stalled. I opened the message. Mom, I wrote this before the vote. Just in case. Figured if I won, I'd delete it. No need to talk if we were on opposite sides. That's how I saw it. Winning or losing. That's how I've always seen everything. You used to tell me life wasn't a scoreboard, that the only thing that matters is what you can live with. I used to roll my eyes when you said that. Thought it was soft? Safe? Now I think maybe you were the only one actually playing the right game. I messed up. Not just with Erica. Or with Madison. Or the company. With you. I think the worst part is, I didn't even feel it happening. I just kept moving. Taking shortcuts. Saying that's just business. Like I could wall off the part of me that knew better. But I see it now. When you sat at that board table, I finally saw you. Not Mom. Not the lady who packed my lunch and helped me finish college apps. I saw the woman who kept this whole damn thing from collapsing. Who still showed up when we spat in her face. And I hated it. Because it meant I wasn't the smartest person in the room anymore. And I built my whole life on believing I was. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I told Madison I'd leave the company for good, and I meant it. Not because you won, but because I need to figure out who I am without Skylure. Without stealing. If you never reply to this, I get it. But if you do, maybe one day we can have coffee again. Just as people, not adversaries. Logan. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. The boy I'd raised, who used to bring me wildflowers after school and sob through the Iron Giant at age 9. He was still in there, buried under ambition and ego and pride, but not gone. And that email? It wasn't just an apology. It was the first brick in rebuilding something broken. I didn't reply right away. I let the week breathe. Let the dust settle. Let myself grieve a little more for the years we'd wasted behind walls of silence. But on Sunday morning, I opened my laptop and wrote back, Logan, thank you for writing this, and for not deleting it. You're right. I did always say life isn't a scoreboard. But I also said something else. You just never listened. It's never too late to come home. Not to the house, but to yourself. You don't need to be the smartest man in the room. Just the most honest one. When you're ready for that coffee, I'll have the kettle on. Love, Mom. I hit send. Closed the laptop. And finally let myself cry. Not from anger. Not from grief. But from the hope that maybe, just maybe, some roots run deep enough to grow again. 2 weeks later, I stepped into the community center just after 8 a.m. I hadn't been in a place like this since PTA days. Scuffed linoleum floors, a mural half faded by years of sun, the faint smell of old coffee and determination. The workshop was called Next Chapter, Women Rebooting in Tech. Erica had nudged me into it. Said there were dozens of women over 50 who had experience, drive, and nowhere to go. All pushed out by younger teams, shinier resumes, startup culture that worshipped youth like a god. You built a company, Tina, she told me. Now help other women do the same. So I volunteered. 6 sessions. Free mentoring. Real talk. No buzzwords. No yoga mats. Just resumes, confidence, and computers that still ran Windows 10. We were 10 minutes in when she walked through the door. Madison. Hair down. No filters. No designer bag. Just a canvas tote slung over one shoulder and a folded resume in her hand. My heart did a funny little skip. She scanned the room, hesitated, then spotted me at the front. Her face flushed. I watched her fight the urge to bolt. But she didn't. She walked in, sat down, and didn't say a word. I waited until the session ended before approaching her. She was packing up slowly, methodically, like someone dragging their feet before a dentist appointment. Hey, I said. She didn't look up. Hey, didn't expect to see you here. Her voice was quiet. Didn't expect to come. Resume looked solid, I added. She gave a dry laugh. It should. I wrote most of the company's press releases by myself, while Logan was off doing TEDx panels and stealing Erica's code. I studied her face. She looked tired. But not fake tired. Not curated for Instagram. Real tired. Soul tired. You trying to get back into PR? She shrugged. Trying to figure out what I'm even good at. You're good at reading a room, I said. And when you're not on defense, you're a hell of a communicator. She finally met my eyes. And just like Logan's email, her next words surprised me. I spent so long trying to prove I wasn't you. I never noticed all the ways I should have tried to be. I exhaled, slowly. That's a hard thing to say. It's harder to feel it, she whispered. I thought being sharp meant being strong. But when you stood in that boardroom and nominated me, I'd never felt smaller. Or more seen. I stepped closer. You weren't small. You were just quiet long enough to hear yourself. We sat down at the empty table again. The same one where she'd quietly taken notes that morning. I reached into my bag, pulled out a workbook. Want to help me redesign the mentorship curriculum? Her head snapped up. What? You said you were trying to figure out what you're good at. Well, here's a shot. I thought you were done trusting me. I shrugged. You're here, aren't you? That's step one. She swallowed hard. You really think I have anything left to offer? I gave her a long look. You're not a brand anymore, Madison. You're a person. That's what you have to offer. We stayed 2 hours after everyone left, whiteboarding ideas, drafting frameworks, laughing a little too hard when the marker squeaked. It wasn't the comeback she dreamed of. It wasn't glamorous. But it was real. And for the first time in years, we weren't mother and daughter battling for control. We were just two women rebuilding, side by side. That night, she texted me, "Thanks for not turning me away." I replied, "Thanks for walking in anyway." We held the final session of Next Chapter on a rainy Thursday, the kind of day where everything feels slower, softer, the kind of day where women tell the truth without raising their voices. By then, the room had become a little community. Deborah, who'd spent 2 decades managing medical records and now wanted to learn UI design. Lila, a former teacher who lit up like Christmas every time she opened a spreadsheet. Sherry, who used to bake cakes but wanted to build apps. And Madison. She never asked for a title, never asked to lead. But she came early, stayed late, brought muffins on week 3, and notebooks for everyone on week 5. Quietly, consistently, she showed up. I watched her learn how to listen again, how to teach without posturing, how to give without the need to be seen. After the final roundtable, Deborah asked if we could go around one last time and share our biggest takeaway. Sherry said, "I'm not too old." Lila said, "I'm not too late." Madison? She looked down at her notebook, then up at the group. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I'm not too far gone." She met my eyes. Because someone gave me a second chance before I deserved it. That night, I sat alone in my living room, a glass of wine in one hand, the last printed agenda in the other. And I realized something. The woman who walked into that boardroom all those months ago, the one fueled by hurt, pride, and the need to be seen again, she'd gotten everything she asked for. And then let it go. Because what she wanted more was peace. Logan called me the next day. Not emailed, not texted, called. "I got an offer," he said. "A legit one. Mid-size firm. Wants me to help restructure their digital strategy." "That's great," I said. "They know everything, the articles, the mess. They still want me." "Then take it." There was a long pause. "You think I can do it right this time?" I smiled into the quiet. "That depends. Are you finally ready to listen to the women around you?" He laughed softly. "More than ready." We hung up a minute later. No tears, no long goodbye, just a new beginning, with both feet on the ground. The next week, I returned to Skylure Labs. Just once. Not for a meeting, not for a speech, just to cast one final vote. They were holding elections for permanent chair, and Madison had been nominated again. She didn't know I was coming. I slipped into the back, just as they called her name. She stood, spoke clearly, calmly. No spin, no show, just steady leadership. I voted yes, and so did everyone else. Unanimous. She'd earned it this time. Not with filters, not with charm, with growth. As the boardroom cleared, she spotted me near the exit. Her eyes lit up, not with pride, but with something better, gratitude. "You came," she whispered. "Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. You can give your children everything, your time, your patience, your bones, and they might still look you in the eye and ask what else you've got left to offer. And if that happens, you don't crumble, you don't beg. You stand up. You pull every piece of yourself from the dirt, dust it off, and rebuild from there. Because you're not just someone's mother, someone's afterthought. You're you, a woman who's seen things, done things, survived things most folks wouldn't understand, even if you drew them a map. And That's your power. I don't regret loving my children. Even now. Even after the lies, the dismissal, the betrayal. Because love, real love, isn't about being soft. It's about being brave. It's about saying, you broke me, but I'll still root for you. From a distance. Because I believe in redemption. But not at the cost of self-respect. The house I once bought for them, with every dime I had, it's mine again now. I let the realtor list it after I moved out. No drama, no warning, just a clean sale. When Madison called, panicked, asking where she'd get her mail sent, I said gently, anywhere you want, sweetheart. You're grown now. She didn't argue. Logan never called at all. But he sent a letter. A real one. Short. Handwritten. And in it he said something I'll carry with me. I used to think you were standing in my way. Now I realize you were standing in front of me, holding the storm back. Maybe that's the most we can ask for. Not perfect children, but children who eventually understand what it cost us to stay strong. The foundation? It's growing. We've had 3 women land jobs in the last 2 months. One just got hired by a firm that once turned her down 5 years ago. They asked for a second interview. She walked in, gray roots and all, and said, I'll give you 1 hour. After that, I have another offer waiting. They hired her on the spot. Madison stops by sometimes. Not to be coddled, not to cry, just to sit on my porch, barefoot, and talk about things that don't require branding. She's dating someone now. A librarian, if you can believe it. Kind. Quiet. Keeps a notebook in his coat pocket. I told her, that's how you know it's real. When a man makes you feel safe without making you small. She laughed. That's exactly what he does. Then she paused. I wish I'd watched you closer. I said, no, honey. I wish I'd made you watch. Logan's overseas now. Consulting for nonprofits. Low profile. I don't hear from him often. But sometimes, I'll wake up to an email with a link to a podcast or an article about startup ethics, and the subject line will say, made me think of you. And that's enough. Because we're not all meant to travel side by side forever. Some of us are meant to walk ahead, clear the brush, mark the trail, and trust they'll follow when they're ready. If you're still with me now, I want to leave you with this. Whatever storm you're in, whether it's family, failure, or a future you never saw coming, know this. You don't have to stay broken. You don't have to shrink. You can rise. With grace. With heat. With a quiet kind of fury that says, I may be older, but I am not done. And if your own children mock you for being laid off, if they forget who fed them, who forgave them, then you look them dead in the eye and say, now I own your company. And you fire them first. I never left, I said. What would you do if your own children turned success into a weapon? Would you still forgive them, or finally teach them what respect costs?